Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and to our coffee times together. Today, because we are still in social distancing, in isolation, and we are getting so lazy, like my mug says, I decided to bring you more recommendations since you guys seem to really like my first video. So I am here with 5 more ideas of shows and books that have one or two elements in common to recommend you some TV shows as well as some books that you can read and watch for this isolation period.
It's coffee time!
So in these 5 things, I have tried to give you a wide variety of things and genres. So my first recommendation, and because we did not touch this topic on my first video, we have zombies. I love stuff about zombies, and there is this show that I really enjoy called iZombie, and it has 5 seasons of 13 episodes each, so there's a lot here to binge if you decide to start this one while you're in isolation at home. What I love about this is the combination between, serious and bloody, but also a lot of funny moments. We're following the story of Olivia, Liv, and she goes to a boat party, and the next thing she knows, somebody has bitten her and she is turning into a zombie. So she was a medical student, decides to drop her studies, break up with her boyfriend to protect him because she doesn't know how her body and how things are gonna work now that she's craving brains. And she decides to take a job at a morgue because what is the fastest way to food for her? Working at a morgue. So I absolutely loved this show. I thought it was very genius. All the characters are so different, but so well developed. I really love this show, and I still need to catch up with the last seasons. I still don't have access to them, but if you have the option to binge the 5 seasons, I would do so. So as for books about zombies, there is this trilogy that it's super easy to read, really entertaining. The books are fairly short, and if you have been following my channel, you might have seen these books pop up here and there because I have not heard many people talking about them, so I mention them anytime I can because I think they're really enjoyable and perfect now to binge the trilogy if you have access to the 3 books, and that is Dying to Live by Kim Baffenroth. So the first book is called Dying to Live, and the second one is Life Sentence. The third one I don't own, but because I've already read these 2, it would be a great addition now for this isolation, so I might try to order it and see if I can get it because the post is obviously delayed. But these are so much fun. We are following a survivor after the apocalypse, and he thinks he's one of the only ones that is trying to survive by himself. He's called Jonah, and while he is investigating some buildings and trying to get like food and things like you tend to do in the apocalypse and post-apocalyptic world, so he finds a museum where there is a bunch of people that have been locked up there trying to survive together, and he decides to join them, and this is how the book starts, and I absolutely loved it. The second book was a little bit different because we're following one of the youngest of the people that have been quarantined in this museum, and for her, she doesn't know any other world before the apocalypse, so for her this post-apocalyptic world is everything she knows. So it's awesome to see it through her perspective. Plus we also get to follow the post-apocalypse from a zombie's perspective, which I thought was fantastic. So I really loved these 2 books. As for my next recommendation, I wanted to pick a period-based piece that had something supernatural to it. So for this, I have picked Carnival Row. It stars Orlando Bloom and Cara Delevingne, and it mixes a couple of different genres. So we have here some mythical creatures that have escaped and are now in the city, plus there's also a serial killer that needs to be catched, that is causing a lot of commotion in the city, and so this is perfect if you like this combination of different genres. And as for the books, I have picked a book series that is now complete, and the books are really chunky, so it's perfect if you need a lot of reading material, and that is The Diviners by Liv Bray, because it also combines different genres here, like the supernatural. There's also a serial killer here involved. We're following the story of Evie, and she has a special talent. When she touches an object, she can see things, memories that are attached to that object from the person that owned it, and because of these, you know, she's having trouble to adapt. And we are in the 1920s, by the way, and her family decides to send her to live with her uncle. And when she gets there, her uncle works in a museum, and he's helping also with the investigation to catch a serial killer, and she decides to try to help as well to solve that mystery. So it is fantastic. The books are chunky, but it reads pretty fast, and it also combines a lot of different genres, and I absolutely love this first book. I do own the second one, so I think I'll be starting it really soon as well, because we're gonna have a lot of time to read. Next, I would like to talk about some representation here. So for these, I just finished binging the show on my blog on Netflix, and this is a show that I was not sure I was gonna love, but because it's like oriented to teenagers. However, I decided to give it a go after I saw so many people praising it on Twitter, and I am so glad that I started it. It is fantastic. So we're following here like a group of 4 best friends that live in the same neighborhood, and it is a poor neighborhood that is full of gangs. There's a lot of street violence, and people dying is something normal. So I love all of the different representation that it brings. It is mostly a Hispanic neighborhood, and you get to see different characters that have different types of families. Most of them, of course, are kind of broken families in one way or another. So I just thought the show does a great job to bring all the drama to be super realistic, and they don't hold back when it comes to show how bad life is on the streets. But it's also funny, has a lot of comic relief, which is something great to see. And there is 3 seasons right now on Netflix. The last one just came out, and I binged all of them super fast because the episodes are around half an hour long, and like, I absolutely love this. And for this, of course, I'm going to recommend The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I think it's a book that everybody has to read, and we're following the story of Star. She's a teenager, and this book depicts police violence against people of color. And so she lives in a very poor neighborhood, but she goes to a school in which is mostly white people that have a better economy, and so she is all torn between both worlds in a way. So it's perfect to see, you know, her vision on both worlds and both perspectives. Plus there's also a lot of street violence, especially after someone of color was shot by a policeman, and this leads to some riots on the neighborhood. So it is a great book again for representation. Next, I'm bringing you something completely different. We have Call the Midwife, and this is a show based on the late 50s and the 60s that was aired in BBC, and it is about this young midwife that she thinks she's going to this nice small hospital, but instead she's being sent to a convent with nuns, and so she has trouble adapting there. There's a lot of drama, but she ends up making friendships. And this is a show that I picked because I wanted to recommend a specific book, and this is the show that I could find that was coming a little bit the closest. The book is this one, a dystopian science fiction book called The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And this is the society in which women basically cannot really bear children anymore, and so the younger girls are basically being bred to be a bearer of a child, and that's their only purpose in life, is to go to a family. They're assignated to a family once you're able to get pregnant, and they have sex with the husband until they get pregnant. They deliver the baby, and then that's it. They have fulfilled their purpose in life. Which is a very interesting concept, and for me this is mostly how the dairy industry works. If you want to compare it to something, and I really found this book super interesting and very different from anything else that I had read, with a very interesting concept. And as for my last recommendation, of course I had to recommend some true crime. So I have here the show Mindhunter. There is 2 seasons, and this show, it is loosely based on the book called Mindhunters as well, and we're following an FBI agent whose job is to interview serial killers to figure out how the minds of serial killers work. Is a little bit, you know, similar to Hannibal Lecter's story, to Silence of the Lambs in that sense, but that's about it. In this case, in the first season, they interview Kemper, which is a serial killer that is very famous, and the way that the actor from the show looks exactly the same as the real one, and he behaves exactly the same, it's just mind-blowing. And the show was really good. The second season was also really good. So if you love true crime stories, this is definitely a show that you have to check out. And as of the book that I would like to recommend for true crime, is a book that I read that I loved a lot more than I thought I would. But again, it is for people that are really interested in true crime and, you know, don't mind to read about these things, are not triggered by these things, because this one is very heavy on the true crime stories, and that is Murderabilia. So this is a book in which we're following a detective, and she's trying to solve a series of crimes that are all they all have the same modus operandi. So they think, of course, it's the same killer that is behind all of them. And while she investigates these cases, she gets deeper and deeper into the dark web, and she discovers a place on the internet that people use to sell and buy murderabilia, which are objects that are either from the victims or from the perpetrators of the crimes, and they're being sold for people that collect this kind of stuff. So they do describe true crimes and things like that, and it might not be for everybody, not everybody's taste, but somebody like me that's really interested and fascinated by true crime, I really enjoyed to read this book. So these were 5 more recommendations, 5 TV shows and 5 books that I would recommend you to, you know, give a try now that you have perhaps some extra time. Let me know down below, what have you been reading or watching lately? What would you recommend to me? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support. Also, down below you find all the links to all my social media, so make sure to follow me there as well, and I hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye.